There's always a significant difference between running for office
Yeah.
and then getting into a room where sausage is made.
There's definitely a difference. Yeah.
And maybe you could just talk about that.
I guess the part that is surprising me is just how hard it is to get things done, and that there's a process, and that there's rules in place for a reason. The sort of the Open Meetings Act is there for a reason, and I get it, but it's hard to not be able to talk to two of the commissioners at the same time. If I do that, then we're sort of conspiring, and it's not that. You're just you're sharing ideas and things of that nature. And if we're all together in a room and we start talking about the business of the city, then we can't do that. Again, I get it. There's reasons behind that, but at the same time, it's like, man, it's not making it easier. It doesn't make it easier.
Ward 5, your district,
Ward 5
is right where the hospital is.
Yes.
Sale Winds, and that's probably going to be the biggest transformation
Yes.
that's going to hit this town. That'll have a difference for generations, literally.
Yes.
People on Facebook or next door spouting off with, here's a great idea.
Yeah, that's
that you're probably seeing some common themes emerge. And do you have a sense of what might be the beginnings of a vision that feels right for the future of this community?
Yes, and here's what I will say to that, because I knew we were going to be talking about this, is to really explain some of the history. I think when I explain to people sometimes, it changes some views as far as how things are perceived. The vision for Sale Winds and that board that I was talking about, that I was on, Sale Winds Incorporated, that is still very much in place, and that was created as basically the opportunity to bring things like the Hyatt here. And that they actually were very successful in that. They started that, the project, and Governor's Hall and the Visitor Center was all sort of part of that as an attraction to bring the Hyatt, bring something like the Hyatt in. The Hyatt came and looked at the property and said, it's not big enough. We want something, we're thinking even bigger. So to that end, it was extremely successful in that it brought the Hyatt in. But the end result of that is we still have this waterfront that is that definitely has more potential than has been realized. Part of the problem with it, obviously, has been the hospital right in the middle of it. And for many years, the hospital, when asked about it, had no interest in moving, no interest in, while it had been talked about and bandied about in other circles, it had never come to fruition. And then when basically a new regime came in, that dialogue started to open. Part of that, running parallel to that, has been multiple different charrettes, public information sessions, public hearings, waterfront development commissions, multiple different designs and ideas and public input opportunities for literally the past 25 years. So not that some of the ideas that are coming forth now are not viable or not interesting or not worth considering. But if you're new to the table, don't come to the table and say and act like this is a brand new idea and why aren't you listening to me? There has been literally decades of incredible amount of work going into talking about that waterfront, studying what can go there, what's viable, what's not viable, et cetera. As a result of all of that, and all of these different commissions, and trying to go out and trying to woo developers in, that sort of thing, the city, the county, and the state, we're not developers, we're not realtors, and nor should we be in the position of doing that. We should not be the ones going out actively doing that and soliciting people to come in and, hey, don't you want to develop our waterfront? So recognizing that, the previous city council and the previous county council, as well as the state, determined that the best way to do it was effectively a real estate development corporation that is sort of a quasi-governmental thing, because there's different property interests there. The city only owns a small portion of it, Governors Hall being a part of it. Hospital obviously owns a large portion of it. The state owns a portion of it, as well as, not only with the fishing pier, but also there's sort of the Maryland Port Authority has a part of, the waterfront there and part of where Governor's Hall is. And then the county has a part of it. And so you have all these, they're not competing interests. We all are effectively working towards the same thing of wanting to develop the waterfront. But it was determined that, okay, since we can't be doing that job on a day-to-day basis, we need a commission, we need a group of experts. And so that's how CWDI was formed, with appointees from the city, the county, and the state. And I can tell you, the people that are on that are really some of the best in the business, as far as knowing how developments work, knowing Cambridge inside and out. There's local people on it. There's people that have moved here that are just perfect level of expertise and have done this type of work all of their careers. And so there is a real brain trust there that have been working tirelessly. And these are not paid people. These are volunteers that are just doing this in the furtherance of making a better Cambridge. And so they are actively working on, and they just most recently did a massive survey that yielded, it's funny because it yielded basically the results that we've sort of known all along, that we determined almost 30 years ago, and that what would be great on the waterfront. You want to keep open space and a river walk. You don't want a big wall separating you from the street to the creek. You want to still be able to see that. You want it to be an active waterfront. You want it to be sort of a working waterfront. We want to have the watermen there. We want to have the yacht maintenance there, and that sort of grittiness. That's what separates us from other Eastern Shore towns. That sort of rawness is a good thing and something we should embrace, as opposed to sort of the I'm going to throw St. Michael's under the bus, sort of that saccharine view of what an Eastern Shore town is, this sort of idyllic village with that sort of thing. That's not who we are. Then the minute we try to be that, then we lose what Cambridge actually is. So that sort of grittiness and that rawness is something that we want to preserve. But there's also room for a boutique hotel. There have been several studies that CWDI has done that it is completely viable, and the Hyatt, that's something they've been wanting. It actually is a compliment for them, because when they get full, they want a nice place that they can send additional wedding guests and that sort of thing that can be a compliment to them. It's a big misnomer to think that, oh, the Hyatt doesn't want another, hotel or things of that nature.
How do you think things are going? Do you feel like that momentum is still...
The momentum is still there. I will say that there's always a caution to sort of give out more information than you have that is solid fact, and when there's interest being piqued, you don't want to ruin it either, when there are developers looking and doing that sort of thing. And some things, if word gets out, then it can be immediately met with consternation without sort of knowing all of the facts. But there are a lot of potential things that can be coming within the coming year to years that would spur even further momentum. And so there is a lot of open and active discussions that are going on. Again, CWDI they meet much more than the city council does as far as actively working on this. It has not been without its sort of growing pains, and there's a level of trust that has to be there between the city council and the county council and CWDI, and making sure everybody is on the same page. But I can tell you, a lot of their designs that they've been working with BCT Design Group, which architects and developer, style plans and that sort of thing, that when they are ultimately sort of released to the public in general, I think people are going to be very pleased with. And it doesn't dictate, all right, this is where you have to put your hotel. This is where we have to have a restaurant. It's a guidepost. It's sort of, this is generally speaking what the community has said we want here.
When do you think that might happen?
I would say within the next 6 months. Again, there's some other parts of it that, CWDI doesn't want to step on toes, but if you come out with sort of this general plan, there was some consternation on I'm the liaison for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there was some consternation on there. Well, why haven't you talked to us yet? Well, they weren't to that point yet, to be perfectly honest. And so, you don't want to start releasing plans or saying, all right, this is what's going to happen, or this has to be there, when that's not. It's been my experience in my life and my career that there's some people that are very good at visualizing what they can look at a blank slate or can look at a piece of waterfront and can see a restaurant can go here, or this can go there, that sort of thing. And there's others that are not good at that at all. So just having something that you can point to when you're meeting with people and say, here are some possibilities. This is not what you have to do here on the waterfront, but here are some good options and opportunities is a good way of doing it.
I want to talk a little bit about crime. This is in many ways also an economic development issue as well as a quality of life issue. It's still up.
Yeah.
And so, everybody looks to a town council to help solve the problem. Where do you think we are with that?
I think we've made some real good strides in the past, I will say the last 3 to 4 months, in the efforts that we've made to bring our police force back up to levels that it needs to be. We've had a bunch of new recruits that are going through the academy. We were able to bring some of the police salaries and pay back in line with where they were supposed to be. Chief Lewis has done a fantastic job of sort of looking at his entire force and seeing where promotions could be made and people brought into those levels. But it's going to be a process, and there's new officers coming online. They are well trained, but there's going to be a level of getting them out on the streets. We're also looking at some other things that can ease some of the strain as far as response times and that sort of thing. We're actually looking at a drone program that is really actually, it sounds like, oh, here they are spending money on a drone, but it's actually the police forces where it's been used, it's had a remarkable effect on, one, the response times, two, the ability to see the crimes that are happening and being able to respond accordingly, because you're not sending officers on wild goose chases, when you get a report of this or that happening in an area. Obviously, we want to beef up the camera, since the cameras are extremely helpful, and in certain sort of hot spots in town, they have been helpful, and having more of those is a very effective technique. So, fortunately, we have a very good police chief, and we have a council that is very much in tune with that. But some of the other sort of systemic problems, they have to be addressed. And when you start addressing things like housing and working on some of these sort of core issues within the city, that can have a positive effect on the crime rate, as well as things like the Boys and Girls Club and things of that nature, and getting kids sort of off the street and into centers and areas where they can have something else to do. my grandfather always said, idle hands are the devil's work. So that's when you have that sort of level of boredom or despair, what are they doing? How are they occupying their time? Having those opportunities is a good thing.
Any glimmers of hope for getting back to a more engaged conversation going on between city and county? Seems like both the city with a interim manager and the county with an interim manager might be straining that somewhat.
Yeah, I would love for the city council to have a better relationship with the county, and certainly we have, a good relationship with several members on the county council. But I can tell you, it's not from a lack of outreach on our part. We're here, we're new, we certainly had no preconceived notions, but the level of sort of, I'll be honest, I mean, the level of sort of disdain that comes from the county it's really maddening and sad, honestly. And they can do better. Councilman Travers and Councilman Pfeffer have been nothing but fantastic with us and have been engaged in any questions we have. But basically everybody else just sort of gives us the cold shoulder, and it's frankly, it's unnecessary. Like it or not, we are the county seat, and we are the economic engine that drives the rest of the county. And most people are living, working, thriving here. And this is sort of, we're not the center of the universe, but we're definitely the impetus for most of the things in the county. And we are huge advocates for tourism and many other departments that we work very well with economic development, and some of the department heads are fantastic to work with, and we want to continue that. And there are, one of my biggest frustrations, and I know one of Commissioner Roach's biggest frustrations, is sort of redundancy of services. And we'd love to have sort of an open conversation about that, and how can we. There's lots of different areas where we can consolidate and make things better and save all of the taxpayers' money by not duplicating services, even between the city police and the sheriff's office. There's a lot of tons of redundancy there, and sort of a central booking thing would be a huge advantage. And it's just the conversation's not there. So I don't know what it's going to take. Other than citizens in those different districts saying, maybe I want to change that.
This is another bit of controversy, I guess, an unfortunate one. It's very difficult to have a mayor under investigation. And independent of his guilt or innocence, it impacts government.
Yeah.
It impacts the city. It impacts perhaps a little bit of the momentum.
Sure.
This whole new enterprise had when it began. Could you share your thoughts?
I know from conversations that I've had with the mayor, he said it's a personal matter, and I guess I take him at his word for that. And we've all had had issues or black marks on our past here and there that, or times we're not proud of. But I can't speak to that one way or the other than to say that I know the mayor's working very hard for the city, and so that's the important thing from my perspective. And nobody wants to have the sort of a cloud over him, but from my perspective, right now he's working very hard for the city, and I believe all the council members are maintaining that same sort of cordial relationship. So I guess one way or the other we'll know at ultimately what happens there. So, but I don't really want to comment one way or the other, or throw him under the bus. Certainly, I'm just happy he's working hard for the city like he has been. So.
Are there things that you would like your ward or the city to know as we go into a new year?
Just stay positive. The negativity and sort of the sky is falling mentality sometimes is it makes it hard for all of us, and it makes it hard to get things done. And we've gotten so far afield from the ability to have differing opinions and different ideas on something. And there are so many different ways to attack and address a problem, but just be positive about it. And if you see somebody that is successful, don't sit there and question, well, how do you get successful? And I always call it the crab basket theory, and Dorchester County is no stranger to this. And that's, you have a bushel of crabs and you see one crawling to the top, and that crab's about to get out, and 5 other crabs will grab him by the fin and yank him right back in. And that happens all the time when you see successful businesses or successful business persons, and they're having success, and instead of saying, well, how did he get that, or who's he must be doing some favors for somebody, or have the ear of somebody. Why don't you go and talk to that person and say, hey, what are you doing to be successful? Because I'd like to incorporate that success into my life. And that can have a ripple effect throughout the community. And the other thing is just volunteer. There are so many boards and committees and places that could really use your help. And it really has a positive effect on this community as a whole. And any number of things that you can do to help and support the community through philanthropic efforts or charitable organizations or that sort of thing, just your time is so valuable. And it can go so far in such a small community. A little donation of your time goes an extremely long way here locally and regionally.
Hey, thanks. Speaking of time, thank you for your
My
time
pleasure.
this morning.